Time being 7:04, I'd like to call the Government Operations Committee to order. Can I please have a roll call?
Munn?
Yes.
Lencioni?
Yep.
Gem?
Yes.
Petrilla?
Here.
Wirbal?
Here.
Besner?
Here.
Weber?
Here.
Sulkaitis?
Here.
Folks?
Here.
Bongard?
Here. Thank you. First up, we have item 5A. Chief Swanson's going to make a presentation.
Thank you, Chairperson Weber, members of the Government Ops Committee. Before you hear again tonight, it's an annual event. We have our fire department open house and have for nearly 50 years. Somewhere around the conclusion of Fire Prevention Week in October, we're coming before you tonight to recommend the closure of Lot J, which is the lot just north of City Hall, where most of you park tonight, and North Riverside Avenue. I'm sorry, I've been around a long time. Between Cedar and State, basically in front of the fire station. For those events, we'd like it closed from 6 a.m. until 5 p.m., although we usually clear out by between 4 and 4:30. We make sure that everything's vacated so that the people can come in for the restaurants and other establishments downtown. So we put that before you for your consideration, and I'm here if you have any questions.
Okay. Any questions on this item? No, I'm looking for a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Second.
So moved by Jamie, seconded by Gem. Roll call, please.
Munn?
Yes.
Lencioni?
Yes.
Gem?
Yes.
Petrilla?
Yes.
Wirbal?
Yes.
Besner?
Yes.
Sulkaitis?
Yes.
Folks?
Yes.
Bongard?
Yes. All right, that motion carries. Next up, regarding community development, after last week's meeting, a couple days after last week's meeting, a alderperson reached out and said that there was some more information that was available that might change the way that they voted based on procedures. That person is able to, the item is able to come back on the next regular scheduled meeting. So with that,
Yes. As I've reconsidered my position, I'd like to make a motion to reconsider the item that previously failed to pass at the Planning and Development Committee.
okay. With that, we do not need a second on that. We just need to have a vote on to reconsider the motion to reconsider. Can I have a vote to reconsider our prior vote? Roll call, please.
Munn?
Yes.
Lencioni?
Yes.
Gem?
Yes.
Petrilla?
Yes.
Wirbal?
Yes.
Besner?
Yes.
Sulkaitis?
Yes.
Folks?
Yes.
Bongard?
Yes. All right, so the motion to reconsider passes. With that, now we go back to the original item. So with that, so item 6A, I'll have Russell Covey make a presentation.
Yes, so this item was discussed at P&D Committee on September the 11th. In response to questions from the committee, we brought these items back with some supplemental information. As noted previously, if we have direction to proceed by the end of September, we have a paving contractor available for this project during this construction season at rates we think are favorable and would address a maintenance concern that exists before the winter. So similar to the last discussion, there's two separate agenda items for consideration. The first item would authorize the city to draw on the letter of credit to get the funds from the bank in the amount of $343,000. This would then be on deposit with the city for our use. And the second item is a construction contract in the amount of $385,000. And that work under this contract would complete the full scope of the improvements in the development and would be contingent upon the city receiving the letter of credit funds. A few points just to cover some more information on the project history that the committee asked about. The original developer of the reserves was Ryland Homes from 2005. Ryland constructed the existing roads, curbing, and base pavement in Phase 2. Omnitech LLC, which is the current developer, purchased Phase 2 from Ryland in 2009. And at that time, the city accepted a new financial guarantee from Omnitech for the remaining improvements in Phase 2. And this 2009 guarantee did not include the base pavement, as this had already been constructed by Ryland as the original developer. So regarding communication with the developer, staff's been in regular contact with the developer since last summer about this issue. We've communicated the city's position that the base pavement requires full replacement. The developer had obtained quotes for this scope of work as recently as this spring. and it shared those quotes with the city. Their position has been that they will not cover any cost that exceeds the letter of credit amount. So in July, after a meeting with a developer representative, staff formally directed Omnitech to complete the improvements this year and requested a construction schedule by August the 4th, and we did not receive a written response to that request. So looking ahead in terms of policy with future projects, this is a unique situation as a result of a lengthy build-out period for this subdivision, and this timeline was not anticipated back in 2009 when the city accepted the financial guarantee that we're currently holding. So staff has started the process of reviewing policy and code changes to better prevent the situation in the future, to either not reduce the guarantee for partially constructed roadways or to set more regular intervals to increase the guarantee amount as costs and conditions of improvements change over time. Regarding the construction contract, the proposed scope of work includes contractor mobilization, curb repair, based on the city's engineering inspector taking a look at the curbs, driver apron repairs if necessary. So these are in locations where there's curb work anticipated in the event that the driveway is undermined and needs to be replaced. Based on these driveways being newer, we don't expect there to be many of those, but we won't know that final cost until the work is actually taking place. Removing and replacing the deteriorated base pavement, that's the largest cost item in the estimate, and then the final surface course of pavement. There were 5 quotes obtained from paving contractors, and we provided those quotes in the packet. Geneva Construction is the lowest quote, and they quoted unit prices that are similar to the city's contract for the city street rehab program. There was a question regarding potentially splitting up the project scope. If there was an interest to split the work between 2 projects, one this year and one next year for budget purposes, and then to attempt to complete as many improvements as we could this year with the financial guarantee, there's a few drawbacks to consider. One, there would be a second contractor mobilization next year if it was a separate project, and that second project would be smaller, and therefore the prices we obtain may not be as favorable based on higher unit prices. And we also wouldn't know the full bottom line costs for the overall project until next year. So if we were to attempt to recoup those costs, we wouldn't know those numbers until next spring, at least after the project's been contracted. So one alternative that staff is still looking into is evaluating whether we can reduce the scope of work with the goal of reducing the cost. So we don't yet have this information finalized, so we don't have specific numbers to present, but we are looking at alternate construction methods that would not sacrifice the lifespan of the roadway. One of those options is to repair the curbs instead of replace the curbs. This change could potentially get us closer to the $343,000 letter of credit amount because the curb and driveway work is around $50,000. So if there's an alternate way to complete that work that could be less expensive, we're going to try and figure that out over the next couple weeks. So regarding the action request that's before the committee this evening, there's 2 motions to consider. The first would be authorizing the mayor to demand payment under a letter of credit, which staff is recommending. And then the second being the construction contract. It's still staff's recommendation to proceed with the full scope and cost of the project as a single project this year. And at the time this is presented to City Council in a couple of weeks, we expect to have more information on the potential cost reductions with the goal of trying to work within the letter of credit amount, at least as close as possible as we can get. So with that, I can take questions.
Thank you, Russell. Thanks for providing more information. I wanted to thank residents for emailing us. Obviously, when this came, I can just speak for myself, when this came in front of us last week, as you can see from the City Council, there was a lot of questions, a timeline, so it was good to see more information provided by the residents and obviously with staff looking more into it. So with that, I'll open up to questions or comments. I'll start with Alderman Lencioni first. Yep.
Thank you very much. First of all, there's a couple things that I want to say, and chairing the last meeting, it wasn't part of the discussion, but there were definitely some things that I think that need to be considered when we take a look at this. First of all, it's a roadway. There were questions about who owns the roadway, and I don't want to take a long time because I think we've all done a lot of work to better understand the situation. But it's a public right-of-way, so it's St.Charles right-of-way. Now there's questions about who owns the road that is there, but if it isn't finished, it is a public right-of-way. That would be different from if it was a private road and the residents would have a responsibility.
Correct.
Okay. So, originally when this was put together, there was a redevelopment agreement between the city and the developer. So if there's anybody who's gotten the short end of it, it's the city. I mean, it was our agreement with the developer. So in taking a look at that, as residents, bought their houses, it's reasonable to expect that a competent roadway would be provided. I mean, and then the second point is roads. I mean, roads, police, fire, streetlights, that's kind of what the city does. So we have a response, it's not like some fixes that need to happen. They have never been provided a competent roadway, and that is our job. And we have the ability to capture money from this developer that we can fundamentally fund this project. And then we have recourse against this developer for not providing the roadway, as that they agreed to in the redevelopment agreement. But that's not an issue with the residents. And the reason that I bring all this up and I'm asking for everybody, to vote in favor of taking a letter of credit and doing the roadway is, for all residents, it's reasonable to expect, that the city's going to provide good roads, and not in an a la carte basis, similar to it's reasonable to expect that when you call 911, somebody doesn't have to get a credit card on deposit, I don't like the way that this developer has done business with the city of St. Charles, and we can still address that. But these are residents in a development that's finished that deserve a competent roadway. The rest of it is, as a city, our responsibility to figure out, and I think that there's still a lot to do there. So I definitely support doing this. I appreciate the patience of the residents, and I hope we will vote in favor of making sure that before expenses get increased, that we take care of the travel liability to cars, tripping hazards, everything else that comes along with not having a competent road in a finished development, which I do think that we owe them. So I ask you to vote in favor of doing this work, taking the letter of credit. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Alderperson Gavin.
Yep. Russ, thank you and the staff for all the due diligence again. There was a lot that went into last meetings. Now we have that much more information to base our decision on. Much like Alderman Lencioni, I approved that we move forward with this. The only question I had, and I know you and I had spoke offline about the potential of reducing the cost, and right now it's an estimate based on how many curbs may need to be replaced as opposed to repaired. So my appreciation to you for looking at alternative ways to do that without jeopardizing the integrity of the street and or the driveway aprons and curbs for the residents of the reserve. So I appreciate that very much, so thank you.
Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, Russ, thank you for the detailed information that we didn't have last time, so it helped me get a better understanding of what was going on over there. So also, thank you for reviewing. You're going to reevaluate the letter of credit policy that we have, so it sounds like you got a game plan in place with that. With that being said, at the end of the day, we need to take care of our residents. So with that, I support approving this tonight. So.
Go ahead, David.
So, thanks, Russ, for everything. Now, you mentioned in your second example that mitigation, that idea or that suggestion about reducing the scope, which would reduce that 42,000 difference. So if we move forward with this and approve it, then that's just going to be an accounting thing behind the scenes. We wouldn't pay the 42,000 if you eat up that with savings.
Yeah, so we're hoping at the time that this is presented for city council approval that we have more definitive numbers and we'll know the scope. We know that the roadway improvements will need to be completed fully, so the base replacement and the surface, but we're looking at alternatives with the curb work. And I think at that point we should have hopefully a cost estimate to do the repair work versus replacement, so we should have that information. We hope to have it in a couple weeks.
Okay. And are you, I mean, I know you don't have a crystal ball, but are you somewhat confident that that will, lessen the liability, I guess?
It could.
Okay.
It's a less expensive and less invasive type of repair, and it would not impact any of the driveway aprons.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, thank you again, Russ. I just want to say, first off, to the residents of the reserve that reached out, thank you for understanding our point of view maybe a week ago as to why some of us thought the way we thought. I will say yesterday afternoon I did receive a bunch of pictures of just what the streets looked like after the rainfall from yesterday, and that's pretty powerful. And you start to think if this was winter and this was ice and snow over it, and there's a lot of young drivers in your neighborhoods that are still learning to drive, so to say. So I think one of the things that we've all kind of championed up here is to make sure safety is the #1 requirement. And you look at that picture, that was pretty powerful. So I think this is something that we do need to do.
Thank you, Mark. Any more questions? I'd like to make a, would someone like to make a motion to go ahead and authorize the mayor to demand a payment under a letter of...
So moved.
Move approval?
So moved by
Second.
Leone, seconded by Wirball. All those in, roll call vote, please.
Munn,
Yes.
Montioni,
Yes.
Gem,
Yes.
Petrilla,
Yes.
Wirball,
Yes.
Fresner,
Yes.
Kulkaitis,
Yes.
Folks,
Yes.
Bonegard.
Yes. That motion carries, so now we'll move on to item B, which is a presentation to waive the formal bid procedure and approve a resolution to authorize the construction
I'd like to make a
contract.
motion.
You would like to make a motion?
Yes, to approve.
Yes to approve the
The full.
full? So moved by
And I'll
Munn,
I'll
seconded
second.
by Jem. Can I have Gem, I'm sorry, Robert Gem, can I have a roll call vote, please?
Munn,
Yes.
Montioni,
Yes.
Gem,
Yes.
Petrilla,
Yes.
Wirball,
Yes.
Fresner,
Yes.
Kulkaitis,
Yes.
Folks,
Yes.
Bonegard.
Yes. That motion carries. Thank you, Russ.
Thank you again, Russ.
Next up, we have a presentation from Heather and Peter in regard to the St.Charles initiative.
And if I could, I'd just like to say one thing.
Go ahead.
First off, I want to thank the St. Charles Initiative Committee for what they've been doing over the last 2 or 3 years, even some former committee members. At the same time, we've been having ongoing meetings as we, continue to move towards this final phase of what's going to be an iconic spot in St. Charles for years to come. So I'm looking forward to that, to closing this out. But at the same time, our committee's been reaching out to primarily just about every donor at this point. We're reaching out to all of them to not only discuss timelines and, kind of give them a heads up on how this project's going, but also what we've been finding out is there's still a number of donors that are actually excited about possibly even donating some additional funding. So we're going to, obviously keep all these donors at the forefront of everything, but the committee is moving. We are continuing to raise some funds. And like I said, we're looking right now, our committee's main focus is to get this project done as quickly as possible. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you, and I really don't have a ton to add beyond what's in the executive summary and really just restating it for the record. The initiative was before the City Council in March of this year, and since that time there have been additional donations received in the sum of about $66,000, just over $66,000, bringing the grand total of the funds raised by the initiative to $1.534 million. That does include that $600,000 Exelon grant, as well as the $56,000 Riverboat grant. So I know that Alderperson Wirball had requested an update from the initiative. They still have been meeting and raising funds to this point, but obviously the construction has kicked off. Peter Sewer is here to give a very brief overview on the construction of First Street, just because a more comprehensive update will be provided at Government Services next week, but just to give a high-level timeline overview and then open up for any questions that there are regarding the initiative. But they are still currently meeting, gathering funds as donors come in. I think we received our most recent one as of a month ago, so there are still donors interested in contributing to the project. I anticipate that will continue on, especially as more of the visual elements start to be installed over there and people start to get excited about it. So I'll turn it over to Peter right now, and then we can take any questions.
I just have a couple questions on the initiative side. So I know there's a lot of individual things like benches, trees, things of that nature that are still up to be sponsored. Will those still be up? I don't know how many are still available, but will they still be available for sponsor after everything is built? If somebody wants to continue to donate?
The idea is we'll be able to install placards on each of those items that are available,
Okay.
so we'll still be able to install those after the completion of the plaza itself.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, as Heather just mentioned, I'll keep my words brief as well. We just missed the timing. Chris Adesso and I have put together a nice presentation for next Monday at Government Services, and that's going to include a drone flyover that we have scheduled this week, so you're going to see the latest and greatest. But just as I mentioned 3 weeks ago, construction's still going very well. The underground work is done and complete, so that's the toughest part for us to get through. We're doing about 2 major concrete pours a week at this point in time, and getting the concrete base. That, in essence, goes over the entire plaza surface, and that is the base surface for the paver system that will start to go in about 4 or 5 weeks from now, which is really the finished surface of this plaza. In the interim, you're going to start to see more of the vertical elements going up. If you've taken a peek through the fence, you can see that the 3 kiosks have been constructed. We need to decorate them now, put masonry around them, and the electrical components that go in there. But you start to see some of those elements come through. All the foundation systems for the benches are complete. I think there's 33 separate curved benches, all different size, all different curves to those, and those are going to start to pop out of the ground in the next 4 weeks as well. So landscaping, again, is going to start probably about 3 or 4 weeks from now as well. So as Heather mentioned, a lot of things are going to start to just grow out of the ground. You're going to start to see the plaza take effect here in the next several months. The biggest element to the project is the trellis that has been mainly fabricated at this point in time. Once it's fabricated by the steel contractor, it goes off to get powder coated and galvanized, and that's a whole process that's off-site. There's a lot of moving parts there, and that work will probably start to be installed at the end of October, starting November, somewhere in that time range. So again, a lot of pictures, a lot of detail next week. Unless there's anything specific you'd like me to bring forward to you next week, I'm here for some questions.
Peter, would you say, as of right now, we're on schedule, ahead of schedule, behind schedule?
Yeah, I think we've always, the schedule has always been January 1st, the end of this year. And I think that we will be substantially complete by that time, meaning that the bulk of the project will be done. You'll see the paver system in place, the landscaping will be done, the trellis will be in place. We did just hear about some back order things on some technology and some lighting that we'll get more into detail about next week. So there will be some things that linger beyond that, but the plaza will be ready by January 1st.
Thank you, Peter.
Sure.
All right. Next up, we have public comment. Is there any public comment tonight? Okay, seeing none. Any additional items from mayor, council, or staff? No. We are now going to go into, I'm actually going to need a motion a second to go into executive session to discuss pending, probable, or imminent litigation.
Make a motion.
Moved by
Second.
Munn, seconded by Gem. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Ayes have it. We are moving to executive session.